Greetings, oitlings, greetings, lambs. This is your face on the videograph, Truman Kesey, to tell to you about First Nations and David Paulides, among other things. Usually when I tell something to you, it involves multiple aspects that you wouldn't expect. And this is one of them. I like David Paulides. Everybody likes David Paulides. He's the kind of person that everybody likes. Now, if someone doesn't like David Paulides, it's not a contradiction, because those who don't like him are not human. When I say everybody, I'm talking about humans. They are devils in human bodies, the ones that don't like him. So, however, and he's truthful within a certain scope of point of view, certain topics, but other topics he's not truthful about. And I tried to confront him. Now, he's blocked me from commenting on his YouTube channel. And he had a good reason for doing it. I was being flippant. I was being flippant. Not flip. Flippant. Say the entire word. Don't cut it off halfway through. Flippant. And it hadn't occurred to me that the families of the victims whereof he spoke would be reading my comments. And he pointed it out, and I didn't react immediately. I kept being flippant a little bit longer, because I'm a slow reactor, and usually, four syllables, not usually, and so anyhow, so I did confront him about this one thing on his Twitter. I don't know if he's responded to it or not, but he has publicly claimed that his forefathers created the United States of America. That is a lie. It's not true. It's what's called stolen valor, and it's illegal. His forefathers were Greek and Russian. They weren't. They were over 1,000 miles away from North America when the United States were being created. So I confronted him on that. The other thing is, he uses the term First Nations to refer to the Bering-land-bridge people, the people who crossed the Bering Land Bridge, the folks who crossed the Bering Land Bridge. And my intuition, or prayer in response to my prayer, I got the feeling that they're actually the Third Nations. And this is what we're going to go into. And I did try to comment on this, but like I said, my comments were blocked. And it's shadow blocked, so the YouTube has, so I can see my comments. It makes it look like they're on there, but if I go to another account, they're blocked. Okay, so now the first two nations, I'm not sure exactly who they were, but I'm going to go through a number of sources for the population of North and South America, which might be new information for you. One is the Solutreans. Okay, the oldest skull in the United States was found in a bog in Massachusetts, or the oldest skull in North America, was found in a bog in Massachusetts. Now, bogs tend to preserve things that don't get preserved elsewhere. And that skull was said to be of an Irish type, and it was nearly identical to the skull of Patrick Stewart, the actor. So you got the Solutreans, you got the skull, ancient skull in the Massachusetts box. Now, there were also giants. Now, I don't know if they came before or after the Bering Land Bridge folks, but you've got skeletons in many states that were found by farmers digging, and then reported in newspapers, and then stolen by the Smithsonian Institution, who took them out on a barge over in the Atlantic Ocean and dropped them into the ocean. You've got Canaanite skeletons right now in the museum on Jekyll Island, Georgia, of ancient Canaanites that were, I think, 12 feet in height. They're in the museum. They may not have arrived before the Bering Land Bridge people came, but I don't know when they exactly arrived. They were probably driven to Jekyll Island by when the Israelites took over Canaan. But they could have come before that. It could have come long, thousands of years. We don't know. And they're also documented in a painting, a contemporary. They were painted while they were still alive, before they became extinct. They were painted by the St. Augustine colonists who went to Jekyll Island first and then to St. Augustine. The Paiute Indians exterminated some giants. They found skeletons that were 6 foot 6 inches. Compared to the stature of the Paiutes, that would have been a giant. Compared to me, that would be just somebody a little bit taller than me. And this is the tale of Lovelock Cave. Again, the Smithsonian Institution, I don't know if they were involved in covering up any skeletons that might have been there, but there was only one documented that I found in a hasty and careless search on the topic. Now, the nobles of the Inca were of a different race from the population that they ruled. The ruling class of the Inca began as being, I believe, red-haired or maybe blonde. The South American white people, I forgot if they were red-haired or blonde, but when they arrived, I'm not sure. It's according to the Oera book, I think it was right after this war that involved Wodin, and the Mayans were ruled by someone named Votan, which is similar to Wodin. Wodin and Inka were, I think, cousins. These were people's names, Inka and Wotan. They were generals and admirals in the war against the Magyar up in Scandinavia. But they were the ruling classes down in Central and South America. The histories that the Spanish found of ruling classes, Quetzalcoatl was white. All these ruling classes documented by the Skrælings down in South America, they overthrew them and exterminated them. Except for, I guess, Quetzalcoatl left and said he was going to come back, and that's when Cortez came back at the predicted time. And he was mostly white, I guess. Now, folks who are in heaven are filled with joy. Question is, if there's a serious matter like a missing person, should the folks who are filled with joy stop being filled with joy because somebody's missing? I don't believe so. I think they should still be filled with joy, no matter what happens. no matter what losses or what other people are suffering, the folks in heaven should still, and heaven is inside of you. They're not, they can be right here on earth and still be in heaven because the heaven's inside of them. Okay. So they shouldn't, I say they shouldn't stop being filled with joy. Now maybe they should just keep a straight face and not show their joy, but they should still be in joy. And this is why I was flippant on David Paulides' channel, because I was filled with joy. Now, or should the miserable folks, what if the miserable folks became joyful instead of the joyful folks becoming miserable? We say, well, how are they going to become joyful if they just lost their daughter, their 2-year-old daughter? Well, that's the difference between the devil's culture and God's culture. In God's culture, you're joyous no matter what happens. In the devil's culture, there's always something to trick you into becoming miserable. It's your choice. And maybe that's why some of these people disappear, because they haven't really fully committed to God's culture. Okay, so now there's a population of blonde so-called Native Americans in New Jersey when the Europeans arrived after Columbus. They died from disease, but they were blonde and they were occupying New Jersey before the coming of the Columbus to the New World. And they were blondes. The Columbus found an island full of blondes in, I guess, in the Caribbean Sea, which he exterminated, or he or his men. Should we allow loss, I already said that, to rob us of joy, or should we stay joyful in the aftermath of loss? What's missing here? Okay, now, on the Indian head nickel, it's called the buffalo nickel. This guy he's a Native American supposedly, but look at his nose. None of the people who come across the Bering Land Bridge have a nose like this. So this guy came across the Atlantic. Now there's stories of the Phoenicians, there's stories of Western Scotland having black, red, and blonde people from thousands of years back. This is all documented, but they call the narrative. It doesn't include it. I'm going to show you a picture of because if you're, unless you're old as me, you've probably never seen one of these nickels. Let me see, how do I get it on it? Darn it. There he is. See that nose? You see the date on that, it's 1936. This is what Americans grew up thinking of what a Native American looked like. Because most of them, unless you lived out west or near the Cherokee Reservation, maybe you never saw one. Or if you saw one, they were usually mixed with white, and they didn't look like their ancestors on that side of the family looked. So, did I leave anything out? There was a big deportation around 1000 AD of Picts from Scotland, which into North and South America. That was much later, I confess, than the Bering Land Bridge. But so you see, there are many sources for what the so-called Native Americans. And so they're not First Nations people, in my belief, and I don't have documentation of that because none of the dates that archaeologists give you are accurate. So from my point of view, it's a matter of conjecture, but intuitively, I feel that they are the Third Nations, and that would be the truthful designation if you had to use the word nations at all. thank you. And I'll show you how to find out more about me. I'm an MK Ultra victim, and I was abused by my parents and others. And I'm also was shown, heaven on earth. This here S is the same as the S that Greg Hallett, who is connected with me, although he doesn't realize it, found in the royal marks. Thank you for listening. Talk to you next time.